And
All right, here is part two.
I remember then being in a place where I had woken up, or not woken up, but I had went into a time lapse. Maybe it was, I believe I went back, went into the past, because there again was my grandmother and my aunt, but my mom popped up at this point, and um, she was like, hey, you need to freshen up. Let me do your hair. I was like, well, okay. And my mom hasn't done my hair in years. Hasn't done hair in years. It seemed nostalgic, which is crazy. Why I believe it was something from the past, a past something that I had gone into, um, past to the past of that of this dream. And so we're in the past, and grandmother, my cousin, and another cousin of mine, uh, a male cousin, he's 3 years older than me, and my mom. And so my mom asked me, hey, we need to do your hair and tidy you up. And I was like, okay. And I'm probably a teenager, like from what I imagined at that point. And um, I sit back on this it was like it was something that sat maybe as high as my waist, but my mom was sitting on it, and I saw the hair grease and I saw these kinds of things, and she was what felt like was braiding my hair, and um like when you're getting your hair braided, or if you've ever had your hair braided, um especially um if you're tender-headed, you can kind of feel, sort of like hairs being pulled and certain things like that. And so I felt this in the dream. It was insane, but it didn't hurt though. It was like I could feel like it was just a tingle whenever, or like a slight scratch at the scalp whenever, hair was pulled in the dream, but it didn't hurt. Um, it felt like as if I was just scratching my scalp every once in a while with one finger, you know, um, the nail of one finger, every lightly, so it didn't hurt. But yeah, I could feel that, and my mom was like, "Hey, lean back," and I leaned back, and I remember seeing, like, when she's leaning back, it was like, uh, why, like I'm leaning so far back that I could see her from up above me, looking down at me, but she's still braiding my hair. So I'm assuming, I guess, starting at the front of the hairline is what I'm assuming. Um, but I could still feel her braiding down the back of my hair, even though kept, I was leaning back. And she eventually finished my hair, and I go look in the mirror, and I'm a totally different race. She was like, go look in the mirror, and I'm a totally different. Like I said, all the family members were the same, but I looked in the mirror and I was a totally different race. I didn't even recognize myself. Head shape was different, everything. I was a different person. Um I won't say what race. Well, why not? I was Puerto Rican. And I have different cultures and mixes in my family, but I was full, Puerto Rican. My hair texture was different. And I know that, Puerto Ricans, as well as blacks, as well as Native American, ethnic, most ethnic groups have different textures of hair, from straight to curly. Um, so but that was very, um, it was crazy to see. I had straight black hair. Um, I had an edge up. you know, which was like that was set back, and it was one of those I don't know the hairstyle, but it was um like a set back hairline, but it was faded. And then I had a bang in the front and braids, but it didn't look feminine. It was it was interesting the way it looked. Um, but the style is well known. I've seen it on, um, softer hair textured guys before. Um, but with my head shape in that dream, I was just different. A more um, in my face, my eyes, everything was different, and so which was insane. But I remember looking. I was looking at my hair mostly, but then when I looked at myself, I did have a moment while staring in that mirror, like, it was like a little question of like, why do I look different? So I acknowledged that in the dream, which was interesting. But after that, I remember walking into a walk-in closet. My grandmother was in there. She was folding clothes, and she was like, "Hey, how you doing?" Just as joyful as she is. And she's like, "Hey, how you doing, grandson?" And I'm like, "I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine." I'm like, "How you doing?" He's like, she was like, "Well, yeah." She was like, "Yeah, I'm doing fine." She was like, did you?" She was like, "Well, did you eat yet?" And I was like, "No, not yet, but I promise I'm gonna eat." She was like, "You better. You promise?" I was like, "Yes, ma'am." I was like, "I promise." And she was like, "Well, okay." And I walked out, and I saw my mother and my cousin again. And but in this room that I walked back into from out of the closet were other people. And that's when I had the realization that I had jumped in the past, when these other people weren't able to recant um Dave and Buster's. Um, and I was barely able to recant it. It was almost as if because I traveled in the past, I didn't remember or know what Dave and Buster's was. I mean, Dave and Buster's has been out well before I was born, I believe. But it was almost as if in the dream, Dave and Buster's hadn't been invented yet. And I remember having trouble recalling um, um, Dave and Buster's. And I was like, wait, at one point I was in the conversation with these other random people that were in that same big room. Um, this room was tall. It wasn't a small room. It was a big room, what looked like maybe a wall ball room or a half, like a basketball gym, like a small basketball gym, non-regulation basketball court. Um, with pads along like a gym, like a school gym, or like a non-regulation basketball gym, and like maybe something you might see at a YMCA. I'm not sure, but yeah, I was in this room. This is the same room I got my hair braided in, with that little cleft wall that was just high enough to where my mother was able to sit up on one of the ledges and braid my hair. The same room that my grandmother, I walked into the closet, my grandmother was there, my cousin was in there, standing there. Walk back out, these people are, are there, and they're asking me, um, "So where did you go for fun? Where do you go for fun?" And I started thinking really hard in the dream. Like, this is usually something that would wake a person up, right? When you start trying to recant times, or recollect times, or try to remember times and numbers, or certain things, or when you think too hard, sometimes it'll wake you up. Sometimes it'll wake me up. Sometimes, and but in this dream, I stayed. I stayed in the dream. I was just in the past at this point, trying to remember what Dave and Buster's was. I couldn't even remember the name. But I was like, well, the place I go for fun is and I was just hesitating. I was in my mind trying to like I was thinking really hard, and I was like, "What is that place?" And I said that out loud. I was like, "What is that place?" And they were like, "What? Like, what kind of place was it? Was it was it fun? Was it really fun, or was it just a place you went to?" I was like, "Yeah, it was a really fun place, and this and that." Um, and I'm thinking so hard in the dream, like I'm up there. Dang, I can't remember what this place was. I remember saying that in the dream. I remember exclaiming that in the dream. I can't remember what this place was. And so I eventually am able to get it out. And I'm like, Dave and Buster's. I snap my finger and I'm like, Dave and Buster's. And they're like, Dave and Buster's? They're like, what is that? And I'm like, it's a place you got games and fun and food and all kind of stuff. And like I was like, you can eat there, you order food, and they're like, I don't know, I've never heard of a place like that. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's where I go for fun or have gone for fun in the past. Um, I don't go very many places these days. Um, but I just, yeah, that, I said that in the dream, and they were like, well, okay, we got to check that place out. And then after my mom, like, kind of cleaned up that area, like, she kind of like I saw her twisting the jar back on the gel or grease or whatever it was. She twisted the jar back on the gel and she put it on like this little stand. And she was like, well, you all ready to go? He was like, hey, you should really go, Mark, like talking to me. She's like, hey, you should really go. And I was like, yeah, I want to go. And um, her, my grandmother, my cousin, we all headed out. And these other people, these three other random people, we headed out the door. And then, like, as I'm walking out the door, I woke up. So, I don't know if we ever went to Dave and Buster's. Like, I don't know, but I just woke up. So, um, yeah, like, I'm assuming because these three people, my mother, my grandmother, and my cousin, have had a huge impact. I mean, all of majority of my family have had a huge impact in my life. Um, you know, and I guess we were heavily connected. Maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but that was a very interesting dream. Um, oh, and the cousin, yeah, the cousin that's 3 years older than me, he was in the dream. Um, impacted by him as well. We're family, but I don't know. I don't know. But my cousin and my grandmother and my mother are reoccurring figures in most of my dreams. Um, but yeah, very weird dream. Wasn't even myself when I looked in the mirror. That was bizarre. Yeah, and being in that aquarium with those creatures, those gators that almost closely, like I could feel one of them at one point. It was like one point where they were very aggressive, but that last portion where I was feeding them kibble, they were pretty calm. But like had gotten aggressive at one point. I remember bravely I pushed one of them off, like like just with one hand, like as if to just nudge him, and it was just like I know any real gator would have probably took something off, took a limb off or something. But yeah, but that was that dream. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna edit and upload this, and yeah, make it as short. I'm kind of rambling on, but yes, today is Thanksgiving. Come together with your family, enjoy time with your loved ones. Um, just enjoy the day. Have a good day. God bless.